The ultimate solution. That's what we want to figure out. Is there an ultimate solution to your health? I'm Justin. I'm a health coach and lifestyle coach, and I help you overcome lifestyle diseases naturally without medication. I also wrote a book called Change Your Mode, and I talk about my own experience, about how I overcame or avoided medication. It all started with this. This is something that I talk about in my book, but also don't talk about very much, but it became a part of me. I went through an experience a few years back where I broke my collarbone and I started to really pay attention. This is where I understood this is the point in my life. This is like my arc change when God, I think, tapped me on the shoulder, literally, and said, hey, you need to turn your life around. So I had, up until this point, been drinking whatever I wanted, eating however I wanted. I had already been getting that, spare tire around the midsection. And on top of that, now the doctors wanted to put me on prescription medication, on opioids. So I did. And I felt the worst I ever had in my life, not just physically, but I felt like my brain was leaving me. I felt like I was losing my mind. And I did not like how that felt. And I wondered to myself, there's got to be a different way than this. I had to figure out a way where I wasn't going to be on opioids. I didn't want to be addicted. And so I went on this journey of learning how to heal the body. This is where it started, because then I started looking at the alternatives. If I stayed on these, what would be the outcome? That's the questions you have to ask yourself. These are some posts that I made on Instagram. You can find me at Justin the Lifestyle Coach, and I'm always posting something. This was during the height of the pandemic. I decided to speak out against drug consumption and medications, and because this seemed to be the answer for everything. So I used to write things like, it's 100% illegal, just drawing awareness for drug companies to advertise drugs directly to you, the consumer, in every other country on earth except for the United States and New Zealand for some reason. They make $6 billion yearly to sell you poison. I don't know if you knew that, but it's true. You've seen the commercials on TV. 6 out of 10 Americans take drugs for heart disease, stroke, cancer, or diabetes. These are the number one killers and cause of disability in U.S., according to the CDC. It's not my words. This is from the CDC.gov. They alone cost the U.S. $3.8 trillion yearly. That's your money, by the way, in healthcare costs. If we are truly trying to save lives, let's address chronic disease and lifestyle disease. I think that sounds reasonable, right? Hopefully we can tackle those things today. Here's something called pharmacokinetics. This is something you have to understand how they come up with the drugs. Pharmacokinetics, or PK, this subset of pharmacology, studies the fate of substances administered to a living organism. That would be you. Most drugs take a minimum of 15 years to be deemed safe enough to be introduced to the market. So in plain speak, during this time, trials, tests, and more tests, scientists do their best to figure out if the drug is doing what it's supposed to do in the place in the body it's supposed to do it. They don't even know if it's going to make it there. You ever wonder why when you pop a Tylenol, how it knows where the pain is? They have to study that. But it takes 15 years for that to happen. Some drugs, they don't even wait that long, if you know what I'm talking about. Well, here's the thing. All of these drugs don't just go to the place and disappear. They do go somewhere, and it's not a pretty sight. They go straight to your poor liver. Your liver filters out 500 plus toxins every single day. It's trying its best. But your liver filters out poisons. It filters out fat. It filters out, it makes cholesterol. There's so many functions that it has to do. But if not looked after properly, and if in this mineral deficit, you're going to have what's called cirrhosis, or a breaking down. Remember we talk about the oxidation, the breaking down of the body over time. This is what we're talking about with the organs. It's not a good look if you're not replenishing it. This is some of the things to avoid. Prescription over-the-counter medications may cause liver toxicity and hepatitis. And if you don't believe me, that's the Cleveland Clinic. But you can read it on the inside of your bottles, on the label around your bottles. Read it for yourself. Any of the medications you read. Non-steroidal antihistamine or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. That's ibuprofen. Acetaminophen, that's Tylenol. Statins for cholesterol. Anesthetics, anti-seizure medications. Anything on this list has to touch your liver, and it's not going to be a positive effect. It drains on the liver. The liver tries its best to take these toxins and break them down into harmless particles in water to send it out the body. But if you're not able to do that, if the liver's suffering, that stays inside of you, and it stays inside of the fat. So if you're fat and you're taking drugs, guess what? It's always going to be with you, and it's always going to cause problems. That's not a good thing. So here's another thing we have to deal with. You have gut issues now from taking all these ibuprofen, acetaminophen. Again, just a few doses make your stomach bleed. So now you're coming up, you have pain, so you take the medication, so you have gut issues, acid reflux, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain. And this may be from medication, this may be from food too. What did they tell you to take? They tell you to take Tums, antacids. In some cases, they tell you to take PPIs, which are proton pump inhibitors, which reduce your stomach acid by 99%. And I have a question for you. How are you supposed to absorb minerals without stomach acid? That's the question. So we have here, these are your hunger hormones. If your gut's not working, if your stomach acid is not on peak, you're going to have issues with insulin, glucagon, ghrelin, leptin. Pause this video and read all these slides because they have a lot of information on what these things actually do. Insulin tells you where to put the sugar, and it tells the sugar how to do its job. Glucagon tells you to release or to burn fat, to go and unlock the sugars from where they are stored. Ghrelin tells your body that you're hungry. Leptin tells your brain you're full. But if you're not functioning in the gut, you're definitely not going to function in other parts of your body. This is the miscommunication we're talking about. So again, no stomach acid, you're not able to break down your food, and so you have this mineral deficit. And we talked about how you need potassium, magnesium, calcium, sodium, phosphorus, chloride. These trace minerals are just some of the major building blocks of who you are. Your bones, your muscles, your tissues, made of minerals and proteins. If you're not getting these, you're going to be in a mineral deficit. That's just the way it's going to be. And then what happens? Well, we have the leading cause, heart disease. There's just like the liver, you have other parts of your body that go through these organ failures. Heart disease, cancer, medical errors, which include medications. And it's the top 3. Chronic lower respiratory diseases, accidents, strokes, it goes on and on, diabetes. Everything on this list can be considered a lifestyle disease. How you're living and eating. And these are all CDC stats, by the way. Here's the thing about when you start looking at who's dying or how many people are dying and how these things are attacking people. Every year, about over 800,000 Americans have a heart attack. Of these, 605 are the first time. But then we have people, 200,000 of them happen to be people that have already had a heart attack. So this isn't working. We see that it's not working. The stats are speaking, screaming that it's not working. We had an original plan. The original plan for humans was in Genesis 1 and 2 to worship God, to just chill and rest, to tend the garden, name the animals, explore creation, and love each other, including ourselves. But something changed, and now we're on this corrupted plan where all we do is work for profit, not purpose. We worship on our own effort. We exploit what we can do, like we tend to exalt ourselves instead of doing what we're called to do, exploit the land, unfortunately, eat, hunt all the animals, pollute creation, and mistrust each other. That's the path we're on. That's dark, but maybe there's another solution. Well, there's another solution they offer anyway. So they offer teas, juices, juice powders, and pills, diet teas. You've heard of them, you've seen them on Instagram, and you see these people are happy, you see that they're fit, but is it working? Well, you tell me. You have drugs like Ozempic. Quick, I don't know if you know about this, but Ozempic has been shown to have the exact same effect as whenever you're just eating a natural, healthy diet. Eventually, you're going to plateau. Eventually, when you take Ozempic or you take any of these type of semaglutide drugs, you're going to have a plateau, and you're going to have to change your lifestyle anyway. So if you don't already have the foundation and then you try to skip that step and add these solutions that are not actually solutions, they're just actually tackling the symptom, you're going to have a problem because it's not there. You're not building the foundations correctly. Same thing when it comes to estrogen. Estrogen dominant people tend to gain weight around the hips and waist and butt. And estrogen makes you grow, cortisol makes you grow, insulin makes you grow. And they tend to tell you whenever you have uh, estrogen imbalances due to the xenoestrogens or the food that we eat, they tend to give you birth control to try to help with your weight. You have some of the symptoms are weight gain in the hips, thighs, butts, history of PMS, ovary cysts, cyclic fatigue, cyclic pain in the lower back and hips. This list is pretty, it's miserable, and I can't imagine what you must be going through. I've seen a lot. I've seen fibroids. I've seen people that have going through menopause, and this suffering. But it can be changed. It can be changed with food. It can be changed with lifestyle. So here's the thing about insulin. Another of the three hormones that make you grow, remember, is estrogen dominance. It's insulin. It's cortisol or stress hormone. Metabolic syndrome. These are the things that line up to when you start to have these mineral deficiencies. You have high blood pressure, high blood sugar, excess body fat around the waist, abnormal cholesterol levels and blood fat levels. That's what, when you have this collection of symptoms right here, this is when they start to call it metabolic syndrome. Then the next step is if it gets worse, you start to call it prediabetes. And 90% of people have it and don't even know it. 1 in 3 Americans over the 20 have prediabetes. Eventually you get to what everybody knows as diabetes. Blood glucose and sugar levels are too high. But it's still reversible. That's what you don't hear a lot about. Here's the thing. I call these your rent-to-own diseases. Hypertension, which is high blood pressure. Hyperinsulinemia, where your insulin's too high. Hyperglycemia, sugar's too high. Hyperlipidemia, you have too much blood fat. These are all things you can reverse by simply the way you eat and live. And when I say live, I'm not talking about just for a few weeks to lose 10 pounds. This is so that you can look in the future, 8 years from now, 20 years from now, and be like, what do I want to feel? What do I want to be like that much time from now? How do I want my kids to see me? How do I want to interact with my children and my children's children? This is where insulin resistance comes in. This is part of the biggest part of the problem because we're eating like there's no tomorrow. We're supposed to have no more than 24 teaspoons of sugar a day. And that's already too much, but the average American has about 31 teaspoons every single day. And this, if you can read this, is very small, but it says, consuming too much added sugar can raise blood pressure and increase chronic inflammation, as we've talked about, both of which are pathological pathways to heart disease. Excess consumption of sugar, especially in sugary beverages, also contributes to weight gain. Now, all this has to be processed by the liver, so you can imagine if your liver is damaged by all the medication that are supposed to be the solution, sugar is making it worse. So you have the problem of eating, the problem of medications. I don't see solutions. I see the problems, but there are solutions. This is the job of insulin. Whenever you eat sugar, it goes into the blood. You take a bite, goes into the gut. Again, we had talked about the gut. If the gut's not working, it can be able to absorb properly. But if all you're eating is bagels and crackers and biscuits and flatbread, tortillas, it goes into the blood, becomes sugar. It's supposed to do one of two jobs. It's supposed to feed the cell for energy, remember, where it smashes with oxygen, becomes energy, or it stores as fat. But if you have too much, guess what? The cell can only carry so much sugar. So the fuel goes where it needed, goes where it's needed, and then if it can't take any more, it literally closes off. And we call this, I'm blocking it here, but it says insulin resistance. This is not where you want to be because you're not using the sugar that's there. So the sugar has to go somewhere and it becomes fat. And it doesn't just go to fat because eventually those cells get filled up too. So where does it go? Well, it goes to the heart, causing heart disease, dementia in the brain, strokes in the blood vessels, high cholesterol. Just causes, it's like broken glass floating around freely in your bloodstream. High blood pressure, fatty liver, diabetes, hyperinsulinemia, high insulin. This is the issue. You have so much of this floating around causing all these. And here are the symptoms of, or the short-term and long-term symptoms of high insulin. High blood pressure is number 1. High cholesterol is number 2. Triglycerides. Does this sound like the rent-to-own diseases that we talked about that are called Metabolic syndrome? I think so. Muscle weakness, brain fog, PCOS, does that sound familiar? Decreased concentration, vision loss. And again, it's causing damage in all the small arteries, the small parts of your body. That'd be your eyes, your hands and feet, tingling, your reproductive organs, like erectile dysfunction. The kidneys, small, tiny hair, small as a hair, blood vessels is causing all this damage. These are all the triggers of insulin. Sugar, of course, refined grains, frequent, uh, frequent eating, low fat protein, excessive protein, protein plus carbs. So that's basically hamburgers and hot dogs. Fats and carbs, that's basically fried dough. Vitamin D deficiency, potassium deficiency, that's the minerals again. So we're seeing this list. If you pause and read this list, this is like a normal diet, unfortunately. So it's not your fault completely. Here's the thing. The US has spent in 2019, it spent $253.6 billion in advertising. This is for like foods and snacks and everything you see on TV. Where we are, 2022, 23, 2022 to 2024 and on, it's been 262 billion. It's expected by 2027 we're spending double that at 400 billion. And 1 John 2:15 through 16 talks about making the what is not good for us is the sins of the pride of life, the lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh. But they spend so much money convincing us that these things are needed. If you can see the snake's tail there, these things are what we need, and it's causing us a lot of trouble. What you don't see, of course, is advertising for green stuff, healthy stuff. When's the last time you saw a spinach commercial? Not very often. This never happens, but what you do see right here is boxes and boxes and boxes of the bad stuff. This is the aisle you want to stay away from, the right in the center. What you need to do is start right here and fill up your cart with the greens if you can, and shop with people that know what they're doing. Shopping as a family is helpful. So if you're the type of person that wants to overcome these lifestyle diseases, I highly recommend setting up some time with me. We can talk about what your vision is for the future. If you're experiencing any of these lifestyle diseases, anxiety, discontent, depression, indecisiveness, like you don't know what to do, which way to go. Or if you're doing stuff but it's not working, it's not going to be helpful to just keep going down a path that's unfruitful, ungrateful, faithless, or hopelessness. And of course, heart disease, high blood pressure, respiratory problems, type 2 diabetes. I've seen all of these, and all of them can be improved or reversed. What do you want to do? I think the question comes down to you. If you want to see these things improve, you've got to start a new path. So I offer that up at changeyourmode.com. I have plans that will work for you. You can do it as soon as 6 weeks. You can take your time and build the lifestyle over time. I work with clients over 6 months. I have clients that have changed their whole location, moved out to different states, started running marathons, started their own cooking clubs and their own books and their own coaching programs. This is key. That's the lifestyle you want to build. That's the bigger why, and that's the solution. Changing your lifestyle is fixing these diseases. I want to coach you with that. I want to encourage you, but I also want to encourage you to go to the next video where I talk more about your solutions and the mineral deficit dilemma solution, the mineral harmony reset. Take care. See you then.